The day starts early in Scampia, one of the most disadvantaged neighborhoods in Naples. Marco, whose name we have changed, and his family managed to go back to work after the lockdown. But they are not declaring the work they're doing here, in what was once one of the main centers for drug trafficking by local mafia group, the Camorra. Organized crime is still a problem in the area, and increasing poverty and desperation caused by the pandemic has created new opportunities for criminals to take advantage of.
Viviamo in 5.
We're 5 people and we live almost with nothing. 200 euros, 250 euros. We come here twice a week trying to earn something.
Marco worked as a blacksmith with his father until 1996. Since then, he has done all sorts of work, but he has never declared it. What does undeclared work represent to you?
It's like a defeat, honestly. Underground work is not good, but one has to do it in order to survive.
Marco asked for council housing in 2012, but has not received it. He moved into a flat in one of the so-called vele 10 years ago. These housing estates in Scampia have become an emblem of lawlessness, tolerated but totally abandoned by the state. Here, Marco has managed to build a haven.
Fortunately, I'm able to save some money here. I'm not proud of it, but I pay no rent, no electricity. We squat in this place. This is the only way we can get by. If we had to rely on the state, we would have starved to death. They don't come here to see what's good and what's bad. They abandoned us. That's it.
Italy has around 3 million legal workers. 1 million are in southern Italy. The region of Campania has the most, with over 400,000 undeclared workers. For the state, they don't exist. Being invisible meant no income and no social support for over 2 months of lockdown for undeclared workers, making them easy prey for the Camorra. Italy's undeclared work generates almost 80 billion euros a year. That equates to around 40% of unpaid taxes. According to the National Anti-Mafia Prosecutor, recognizing underground work would allow institutions to get that money back in taxes and invest more in social policies.
Poverty is the first area where the various Italian mafia groups intervene, both for recruitment and to gain social power. There are young people who felt that the support offered by the Camorra was the only way to meet the basic survival needs for their families.
There are organizations ready to help, and the government has increased its intervention, but COVID has dragged 1 million more Italians into poverty, with a total of 4 million people needing help getting food. The Naples region of Campania tops the list. In San Giovanni a Teduccio, an old factory neighborhood in decline, one warehouse that was being used as a safe space for families in need turned into a temporary food distribution center after the lockdown.
Grazie. Ciao. Inizialmente abbiamo distribuito.
At first, we delivered food parcels to the families we already knew. Then word got out and more people came. So from the initial 30 food parcels, we now give out 216 every fortnight.
Con cadenza quindicinale.
Daniela, whose real name we are not using, has volunteered at the association for years, but the pandemic put her on the other side in need of assistance.
COVID has pushed me even more towards the edge. I tried to help myself by doing some undeclared jobs, cleaning, sometimes helping the elderly. But during this crisis, I found myself in serious difficulty because the clients did not want me to come and clean, and the elderly were afraid to let me in.
For decades, locals have suffered the tight grip of the Camorra. Today, its power has declined, but people feel the government is still not providing the help needed. When Daniela's husband died, She became a citizen with no rights.
Having no social security contributions, I have no right to receive a pension. The state says I'm too young to retire as a housewife, but I'm too old to get a job. During this crisis, I've been abandoned. Life has hit me hard, but so has the state.
While the Italian government has been criticized for its long-standing lack of social support, on the other hand, law enforcement action has been strong for years. Post-lockdown, the police expect an increase of criminal activity and they are on alert.
We have a flexible strategy. It changes at the same pace organised crime patterns change. But we also try to anticipate their moves. We try to understand from the street how the Camorra is adapting its activity and try to stop it.
The bulk of these operations are kept secret and confidential. Nevertheless, we managed to follow the Falchi or hoax. Plain-clothed motorcycle police work in Naples' most difficult neighborhoods. They are generally first on the scene to confront criminals, including the so-called baby gangs. Groups of often armed teenagers frequently connected to the Camorra.
The Camorra hasn't gained strength from the lockdown. It tries to diversify its criminal activities. It needs to earn money. It's not stronger, it's just hungrier.
Not only do Italian mafia groups want to earn more, but they also want to launder their illicit income. The pandemic has brought new opportunities.
Si calcola che le mafie in Italia.
It's estimated Italian mafia groups earn over 30 billion euros each year just through drug trafficking.
Ha bisogno di trovare dei canali finanziari.
The Camorra needs to find financial channels to hide their money, and the easiest way is through businesses, mostly limited liability companies, or those quoted on the stock market.
A responsabilità limitata o società per azioni.
The great liquidity crisis triggered by the pandemic hit small and medium-sized enterprises hard. Several anti-mafia associations fear that this might turn organized crime into the largest Italian bank. 20,000 businesses haven't managed to reopen since the lockdown lifted in Campania, the region around Naples. 600,000 companies applied for small government loans aimed at relaunching the economy. One-third haven't received them, including this family construction business belonging to Rosario, who is also a co-founder of an anti-racketeering association.
I applied for the basic €25,000 loan from the government's relaunch decree. I applied on April 11th and I'm still waiting. In the meantime, organised crime is ready to make an offer. That is loan sharking.
The various Italian mafia groups have everything to gain from lending money to struggling businesses, even when their illicit loans can't be paid back.
When the money cannot be returned, the Camorra takes advantage of that. Because of the money, the Camorra can acquire management of the business. From that moment on, the Camorra will use that company as a conduit to launder its own illicit money.
Extortion comes on top of usury. Rosario says the Camorra resumed the collection of protection money, known as pizzo, as soon as the lockdown was lifted. He says the COVID crisis was a game changer in terms of resisting organized crime.
There's even more anger, even more tension. The pandemic has sunk those who were already going through a crisis. In this period, when extortionists appear on construction sites to ask for protection money, many colleagues are saying no.
Rosario himself is a former victim of racketeering. Today, with his association, he helps other entrepreneurs to speak out. He says very few dare to challenge the Camorra. It wasn't easy for him either.
Until 96, 97, my dad paid thousands of euros to the racketeers, but he didn't say anything at home. When I took over the business, I discovered what was going on. For the first few years, I paid out of fear. Then, in 2005, we decided to set up an association, and I filed my first complaint. I made 18 complaints, leading to 6 arrests on 6 different occasions and at 6 different work sites in Naples.
Law enforcement agencies expect record extortion levels at the end of August, a traditional deadline for the Camorra to collect. Usury might rise by 30% this year because of the pandemic, according to the local anti-usury office of one of the leading workers' unions. Responding to that, the anti-racketeering association SOS Impresa has brought together business associations, law enforcement and government institutions to coordinate against the Camorra.
Today we're in a phase in which the criminal phenomenon of usury is growing, but it's growing silently because now victims need those who will become their loan sharks. They're the ones creating this flawed relationship. In 1 year's time, we'll know how much this phenomenon, this deadly embrace, is developing at this precise moment.
Locals sense that the Camorra is tightening its grip, but nobody would talk about it for fear of retaliation.
Normally, we want evidence to prove what's happening. Nevertheless, when we do have that, it's already too late. The business has already died.
Despite fears that European financial aid would find its way to the Mafia, associations and institutions in Campania insist this money is vital to keep businesses alive.
The money is coming and it will continue to arrive in large sums to be given out by the government, which is also dispersing EU funds. We're putting in place many measures to prevent this money from ending up in the wrong hands.
Today, there is social, economic and political support for the people who reject usury and extortion. There is money available, as well as policies in place and associations to help them. Many have paid with their lives for this to happen. Mima Noviello is one of Domenico Noviello's 4 children. He was a local entrepreneur killed in 2008 by one of the Camorra clans, the Casalesi, after he refused to pay the pizzo protection money.
He gathered the family and we talked all together. He basically asked us for permission to say no. He felt that if he had bowed his head, he would also have left this burden to us, his children.
Domenico and his family informed the police, and their extortionists were caught and imprisoned. He was killed 7 years later, shot 13 times.
I realized only later that his killing was a warning, but it was an extreme one. They killed one to show everybody. They managed to scare other business people. They killed him. Do you realize that? There was no retaliation on his children. They killed him. It was very hard for us. At the time, I immediately supported my father's decision, and I would do it again. Since then, I've understood even more the value of saying, I don't pay the pizzo. I will never pay it. Not me, not you, never.
Non pago il pizzo, non lo pagheremo né io né voi mai.
And surely I would feel like saying to any entrepreneur, you have to denounce them. It must be done. Because then Dad was alone.
e hanno potuto
That's why they were able to kill him.
ammazzarlo. Ma se
But if
erano
many
in
others had
tanti,
been
sì,
with
erano
him,
lì,
if they'd all
così
been
come aveva
united, as Dad
provato a
tried to
fare papà,
achieve, that wouldn't have
sarebbe
happened.
successo.
Criminology expert Paolo Migiano, who became a family friend, told Domenico's story and legacy in the book The Other Casalese, that has just been published.
La situazione è certamente
The
diversa.
situation is certainly different today.
Delle forze dell'ordine, della magistratura.
Law enforcement agencies and the courts have worked with great commitment to dismantle criminal groups, especially here in Campania. It would have been better, though, to respond on two fronts: the force of the state, police and justice, and at the same time economic and social aid for the development of the region. I might have missed it, but I haven't seen this happen.
Mima's family today faces another blow directly linked to the pandemic crisis. Her husband, Pietro, was fired just days after the lockdown was lifted. The American global manufacturing company Jabil ignored an Italian government's ban on dismissals. They fired 190 employees and then reversed that after the Ministry of Labor's mediation.
Ad oggi risulto non licenziato più.
Today, I'm not officially fired, but at the same time, I am redundant, which means I should get a post with another company. Those companies that applied to hire Jabil's 190 laid-off workers are all startups. They don't exist yet. There's a risk these companies might never open.
Many others share Pietro's worries. There are lots of smaller companies in the same position as Jabil. 45,000 people were employed by small and medium-sized businesses that didn't reopen after lockdown ended. An army of newly unemployed, potential victims of the Camorra. The situation in Campania is alarming, according to unions.
COVID has had devastating effects. Even before the pandemic, there were already requests for 23 million hours of temporary layoffs. So industry was already in a difficult situation. Now it's worse. During this crisis, 60% of companies have reduced productivity. Many have had to close.
Experts fear that southern Italy faces a long and painful recovery. Unlike the north, there is much more social inequality and it's not being addressed. This is what the city councillor in charge of juvenile affairs told us at a voluntary association venue supporting families and children in need.
This place where we are today gets no government money. If it did, 3 times as many children would be here today. This is what I want from the government. I believe we must not only make sure that the economy and trade are relaunched, but also that the social side and community links are good. This starts from childhood, which is always ignored.
Alessandra was about the same age as these children when her mother was killed by a stray bullet fired by the Camorra. It was 1997. Since then, she chose to take up an active role in local institutions to release her pain and build a different future for her city.
This city should apologise to me because it took away from me what was dearest to me and my family, my mother, who was a young woman, just 39 years old. This city took everything from her. My intention is to contribute to change, to address those social, economic and cultural factors that led to that episode of pain, to modify them so that the same thing doesn't happen to others.
Organized crime responds to people's basic needs when the state turns its back. Those fighting the social battle against the Camorra agree that education and the right to work are the strongest weapons to set future generations on a better course.